This is the last lesson of reception, response, and coordination in plants and animals. And we are looking at the human ear today. So what are the functions of the human ear? 1, hearing. Number 2, maintaining body balance and posture. So the ear has various parts. And what are their functions? So this is the ear. We have the pinna, tympanic membrane, oval and round window, the eustachian tube. We have this coiled part, the cochlea, the auditory nerve, semicircular canals, and then external auditory meatus, among other parts. First, we want to look at the pinna, and it is a funnel shaped to allow collection of sound waves and channels them down the auditory canal or the auditory meatus. So this is the pinna. You can touch yours. Then this auditory canal here concentrates and directs the sound waves to the tympanic membrane, also called the eardrum. This eardrum here is lined with hair that trap solid particles that may enter the ear. It also contains wax that trap dust and prevent entry of solid particles. That wax also makes the eardrum flexible in order to vibrate when sound waves hit. The eardrum is thin and tight. It converts sound waves into vibrations. The vibrations are then transmitted to the ear ossicles, which are the malleus, incus, and steps that magnify and transmit the sound vibrations from the tympanic membrane to the oval window. So these ossicles are the one amplifying and transmitting the sound waves or sound vibrations from the tympanic membrane to the oval window. The oval window is a membrane that also magnifies and transmits vibrations into the fluids of the cochlea, which are perilymph and endolymph. The cochlea is coiled to occupy a small space and also accommodate a large number of sensory cells. The sensory cells or hairs in the cochlea are set into vibrations, producing a nerve impulse in the auditory nerve. So the impulse in the auditory nerve are then transmitted to the brain for interpretation for hearing purposes. We have this part called the eustachian tube that connects the inner ear to the throat. It also equalizes the air pressure between the middle ear with that of the atmospheric air available on the outer ear. The round window, also called the fenestra rotundus, mark the spelling well, discharges or dissipates vibrations from the inner ear to the middle ear. So it is a connection between the inner and the middle ear. Having looked at those structures of the human ear, then how does the structure of the human ear achieve the function of balancing? We can say there are 3 semicircular canals: the utriculus, the circulus, and the vestibular apparatus. All these arranged at right angles to each other. And the end of each vestibular apparatus, or this semicircular canal, are swellings called ampulla, which contain receptors. So the movement of the head causes the movement of the fluid or endolymph in at least one of these semicircular canals. So when you move your head, the fluid inside one of these semicircular canals moves. That movement of the fluid causes stimulation of the sensory hairs contained in these ampulla located in the semicircular canals, and an impulse is generated. Then the auditory nerve will transmit the impulse to the brain for the purpose of interpretation, for the positioning of the body, and posture is achieved. So the semicircular canals are here being arranged at right angles, and this is the auditory nerve that transport the information or impulse to the brain for interpretation. Then here is mechanism of hearing, the main purpose or the other purpose of the ear. We have the pinna concentrating sound waves into the external auditory meatus. These sound waves will strike the eardrum, causing the membrane and the attached chain of auditory ossicles to vibrate. This is the pinna concentrating the sound waves to the auditory meatus, which then transmit the sound waves into the tympanic membrane, which then vibrates. The vibrations are then first picked by the first ear ossicle called the malleus. This malleus transports to the second, which is the incus, and then from the incus to the steps on this side. Now, the motion of the steps against the oval window sets up waves in the fluids of the cochlea. So the cochlea is having some fluids like the endolymph and the perilymph. So if that happens, those fluids are set up in waves, then the basilar membrane around here vibrates. That stimulates the sensory hairs of the cochlea to generate a nerve impulse that is transmitted to the brain through the auditory nerve for interpretation. Since we have discussed the mechanism of hearing and balancing, sometimes the ear has defects. One of them is deafness, and this one makes an individual unable to receive sound. It can either be permanent or partial deafness. Permanent deafness is due to damage of either the cochlea or the auditory nerve, and this one is difficult to correct. Partial deafness is because of the destruction of the structure that conduct vibrations to the cochlea, for instance the eardrum and the ossicles, and this one can be corrected through by performing a surgery or using an hearing aid. You might have seen some individuals having something like Bluetooth speakers on their ears, so they could be hearing aids to enhance hearing capacity. So we are done with this lesson or topic. Attempt all the assignments, discuss with your friends, and I believe you have not just been sitting, you have been making short notes, and you can replay all these videos whenever you need to internalize a concept. You are the best student I have ever seen. So all the best.